Dear friends, today we'll be discussing about Indian arts, and as you know, this PPT is already sent to you. So we talk of Indian arts, some very interesting images come to mind, like the famous Nataraja, Dance of Shiva, or the Sun Temple at Konark, or the classical dance forms, folk songs and folk instruments, and many such images suddenly pass our mind by the mere mention of Indian arts. If you look at art, what is basically art is some form of lines, colors, shapes, curves, patterns, and rhythms. You take any example of an art or a snap or painting, you'll find this combination. There is something like some colors, shapes, curves, sort of pattern or rhythm, and then it gives a aesthetic experience. You feel like saying wow, that exclamation, that wow, that experience of ananda or happiness. That is what art is for. It's an aesthetic experience. When you're able to feel the rasa or the essence of it, sap of it, and that's why, and it has got great significance. So India always knew that art or culture has got great value. In fact, Sri Aurobindo has written a book named as National Value of Art, where he explains how through art nation can be built up. So right from Vedic age to the Renaissance age and now also in the modern age, you'll find that art was aiming at giving this particular experience, to give unalloyed joy, unlimitable knowledge, illimitable experience, and in immortal existence, some sort of peace which will not be perturbed easily. Besides, we must understand that everybody need not be an artist, everybody need not be a master of any art, but everyone needs to experience art. Everyone should have some love for the art, because as we go ahead, you'll understand that experiencing an art itself has got great value. And then Sri Aurobindo says that basically art also helps us in having a link between an aesthetic experience, gives you a link between intellect and intuition. So many things can be done through intellect, but how to bridge this gap between intellect and intuition? And one of the great ways to bridge it is to have some art form, and that is the way you can understand. That's why it has been the backbone of a culture which is primarily spiritual, very intellectual. So it is not surprising that such culture will always have some aesthetics also. It will have some art forms also. It is very imperative. Another thing we must understand in this process is there are two different approaches. One is the Western approach, one is the Eastern approach. Or largely, right now we are talking of Indian approach. Whether art is supposed to get mesmerized by nature, the beauty of nature, both in landscapes as well as in the human figures, and then try to imitate that, try to reproduce that as it is, or it is supposed to go beyond that, or it is supposed to go to something much more than simply stating how it is. So one sentence I had heard somewhere, that when you are trying to perfect the human anatomy, you are actually trying to see a Greek culture, Greek arts. But when you try to go beyond this perfection of human anatomy or the nature's understanding, then somewhere you start touching the Indian art. So it is always invoking infinite, not just imitating a nature. And therefore you can see the sculptures, in the paintings, and everywhere you find that it has got something much beyond. It doesn't imitate, doesn't necessarily imitate. What is theory of this Indian ancient art? it gives this theory or this understanding that it is basically imitation, not imitation but invoking, gives its stamp and influence to all its diverse forms and expressions. So, what is the highest business of Indian art? It is to disclose something of the self, Atman, and Ananta, that is infinite. It has to give you something about the divine, something related with your soul, self, and through expressions of these arts, through using some living finite symbols, and through expression of the powers, you should reach to that which is beyond the symbols, to reach something which is beyond those powers. And that is how we need to interpret also. When we look at it also, we need that to know that this is some sort of revelation, some sort of expression of that which is beyond it. And this suggestion has to be picked up by a mind which is trained in that, mind which is sufficiently sensitive to this type of things. And when it comes to the material world or life of man, life of things in this world, animals and other habitat, still it keeps that, it not, no doubt it expresses everything of that, but still it doesn't get rid of this greater vision, it doesn't get rid of this spiritual scene. And most of the good work, perhaps in sometimes there is a moment of humor and moment of relaxation when this connection may be kept aside for a time being, but in most of the times it is kept very vivid, very clear, and never lost of the sight of. So entire life is seen in the self, some suggestion of infinite and something which takes you beyond. At least there is some touch or influence of this infinite on everything that you are doing. And Indian work of art realizes that this is the ideal, and there is no doubt about that. Maybe many times it can fall short of it, can be lowered, it can be ineffective, but that doesn't mean that it is something wrong in its aim and principle. Attempts can be small, aims are not. So that is why this aim is something spiritual aim, and principle is the whole that Indian art is all about. So it's not bound by imitation. It tries to see the self according to the characteristic method of Indian artist, and where he will see first in his spiritual being the truth of the thing he must express. So first of all, there is a meditative understanding in himself about what he wants to express, and then he expresses that into a form. And for that he uses his intuitive mind, which is not bound to look out in the outward life and nature for his model. What he has to do for that is to look inside, just go inside, find out the corresponding thing in himself or herself. And therefore this entire art is not an idea of intellect, it is not a mental imagination, it is not some kapolakalpit katha, it is not just mere outward outburst of emotion also. So he need not depend on all these stimulants to have some outside stimulus, or to depend on some outward emotion. No, he has everything to be searched for from his within. And the idea, image or emotion or the material equivalent, these are all subordinate things. They just help you as a media, as a transmitter, and they just give the color to the whole thing, or they give the shape to the whole thing. So this connection is very clear, what is primary and what is supportive. So this all may be a physical way of expression, but he is not bound by that. He is not bound by the law of nature or the imitation of nature. So this is very significant thing we should know. And therefore line, color, form and proportion are not his first preoccupation, they are the last preoccupation. And they need to be, yes, they need to be thoroughly understood. When you look at some sculpture of India, you will be amazed by how much command they have got on these things like line or form or shape and curve. Tremendous understanding. But what here we must understand is these are all done as his last preoccupation. His first preoccupation was to understand what spiritual truth or what spiritual form is there in his mind, what he has realized, and what is the real for him. It is truth, it is not just imagination. And then how he can use outside world to just bring it out, to bring that inside outside. And therefore we understand all these things only when we are able to see it to the service for the infinite. What all these shapes, what this wonderful bend in the images, the Tribhanga images, three places they are bent, and that is the reason for it. So that is also reason because of this. Since it is a meditative experience, it needs that you should go inside. Therefore, Indian art was mostly placed outside the crowded cities, in somewhere much away from the cities, and it has to be experienced also that way, in seclusion, not in the crowd of the whole world. We also see that there is excess of ornaments, especially you will see some of the things which were done in the south in the later part in the 10th 11th century. You find that it is flooded with ornaments. There is no pause. Some of the temple architecture and the structures and sculpture, you will see every inch is filled up with some figure, and they all are connected to each other. There are so many patterns and repetitions, such a crowded detail that sometimes you feel that they should have left some vacant space. They should have taken a pause, and a alienated eye, the eye which is not trained in this type of Indian expressions, can be exhausted by the mere quantity of the things, one after the other, one wall, second wall, third wall, one layer, second layer, third layer. It's not exhausting. So what is this all about? Sri Aurobindo says that it is because you are pursuing infinite. So infinite has to be expressed through infinite unity, and that infinite unity can be expressed only through infinite variety. So you don't require relief from the field space. In fact, this time you require a relief from the empty space. There should not be any emptiness should make you feel tired. My God, I need to fill it up now, because unless I fill it up, I cannot express divine. Unless I express divine, I cannot be relaxed. So this relaxation or this relief is a very opposite of what generally we understand, and therefore we find that every inch of Indian architecture, temple or sculpture is filled up. It is full of ornaments, full of features, and they say God is in details. That is where this filling details comes to our rescue, because more you are trying to fill up the things, more you are going to be understanding the things. So, and we also should know the material or the media in which the whole thing was done also put some limitation as well as advantages for Indian artists. So you'll find sculptures have a particular demand from the, because it is made in stone, and then later castings were made in bronze and all. So that has put some demand on the artist. Similarly, wooden part is having a different demand. Then paintings have a more flexible or more fluid media, so it has got a more vital or the moving structure. So you take any number of examples, you'll find that Indian art is full of all these things. It's a great way to chitta shuddhi, catharsis, because you see dance of Shiva or Buddha or 1800 Durga, and all these things are basically giving you a cleansing of your mind. That's why before many rituals, many religious functions, before that some art is done, some rangoli or some alpana or some sort of thing is done, because that immediately creates the experience of creativity. It has also got a therapeutical value for psychosomatic elements. It is a way of soul finding and building, and it is not only that, it is also a way of national unity and regeneration. All art basically reposes on some unity. So it's a unity of different lines, curves. They try to unite. They try to express that one that is one beyond all this variety. And therefore, whether it is few or sparing, lavish or crowded, but it must go back to that unity. And even artist and the art becomes united. The viewer and the art becomes united. This losing oneself, this is forgetting oneself, is the crux of the art. And if you are able to train yourself in that, if you are able to understand why there is this such a calm of nirvana on the face of Buddha, or why that very beautiful smile on the face of Shiva, you will understand Ganga, Yamuna, Buddha, Shiva, Mahishasura-mardini. All these images are going to give you this wonderful experience of Indian art. And you will also find there is a the way to use the matter, every line, every arrangement of mass, color, shape, posture, whatever it is, there is a wonderful way of understanding this, basically this. So physical is only a passage for us to go to something which is beyond physical, and that's why before sometime also told you that all